Well, hello and welcome. Should ECG be privatized to make it more efficient? Well, some say yes, some say no. Indeed, as the proverbial government communication goes, there's always a whisper or a rumor in the air. It will be denied, until the 9th hour. There'll be a communique to say, yep, we're privatizing it, selling it, giving portions away, but who knows what's going to happen to it. But the argument is, would you want ECG to be in the hands of some private entity, be it Ghanaian or foreign? Is that the only way we can make it efficient? Is there no way at all that the Ghanaian can hang on to this last flag, if I may say, and make it fly high? Well, I don't know, but we're here to have an in-depth discussion on this issue. With me in the studio is Sydney Casely-Hayford, and joining us on the phone will be Kwame Jantua to find out which way forward will be best for ECG. My name is Nana Sakwa, and this is PM Express. For staying, we're discussing a subject which, in my books, I think is quite sensitive. Why do I say that? Because you see, once upon a time, our first president, Kwame Nkrumah, built so many corporations and industries, and they were meant to, look after the state, create employment, and, bring enough revenue so that we could become a developed country. But year in, year out, every government that's come has got one excuse or the other to let go of some of these corporations and companies. And now it's got into the turn of ECG. However, energy is a matter of national security. Energy is life and death as to whether you grow, and indeed you can tell companies are laying off, people are cutting back, all because of our energy crisis. ECG is peculiar though. Once the energy comes, they distribute it. But it's important because they need to go and collect this money, and then the company grows. But for one reason or the other, they are unable to collect the monies from the proverbial big man and the proverbial guy on the street or the guys in the slum. So there's a little bracket in the middle who are paying the electricity bill. That's one major problem. They then have to change their transformers. Because they can't collect the money, they can't change transformers. So what do? Sell it, as we've done to many of our corporations, Black Star Line, the Ghana Airways, Ghana Telecom, and the list goes on. Let me welcome my guest, senior brother, Sydney Casely-Hayford, financial analyst. Sydney, you're welcome.
Thank you very much, Nana.
And I saw your press conference today, and, all right.
Yes, we are asking for support for workers on May Day. We think it's very important that the people of this country should recognize that workers have given up substantially a lot of income in order to just stay afloat. Mm-hmm. And we are saying to the citizens of this country, as Occupy Ghana, we are urging people to wear some red as a symbolism of their protest against the way government is handling the economic situation. Ghana is a democracy. It is a very, very unencumbered democracy at this stage, albeit there are one or two things that we still think should be taken care of. For example, we shouldn't have the BNI arresting people under the guise of trying to get them to help to solve a problem without charging them properly. We are also saying that the National Security Agency should be restricted in what it does, because their job is not to investigate every single issue in this country, and it should be relegated to the higher echelons. We are saying that Parliament should not be a one party says we do and everybody does situation. And we are asking government to generally reduce the corruption in the country and be more vigilant on anti-corruption issues. All of these things, we think, are a part of hurting the workers of this country and stopping us all from actually enjoying the full privileges of freedom and justice as we see on our symbols of authority. Mm-hmm. So we are fighting for this, and we are asking everybody who can should please wear red. You don't need to go out of the streets to demonstrate. You don't need to go and walk. You don't need to go and destroy anybody's property. Just wear your voice. Symbolize what you believe in and what you feel by wearing something red. We are asking all the trotros and all the taxis and everybody who's in public service to actually go out there and demonstrate their anger and their disappointment at what government is doing by symbolizing it by putting on something red. and it could be anything. Just wear something red in order to show that on May Day you are dissatisfied with the way government is carrying on managing the economy of this country.
Red it is then. Now the sensitive subject of should ECG be privatized to make it more efficient? Well, that's my simple question to you. Okay.
First of all, let's step back a little and understand how the whole system of energy delivery happens. The Volta River Authority is responsible for generating energy. The Gridco is responsible for distributing that energy. And the ECG is responsible for selling that energy and collecting the money on behalf of the people of Ghana. At the moment, neither one in the chain is working properly. And they are not working because government is not doing its due to satisfy exactly what is going on with each of these organizations. Then, of course, we have the Public Utilities Regulatory Commission, whose job it is to ensure that the customers of receiving power, receiving energy, are not being cheated by these organizations, that they are paying the right amount for the tariffs that are being distributed. So all of these key players are important in ensuring that energy delivery reaches the customer at the right price and at the right quality. Currently what we have, VRA is generating energy from hydro and from thermal, and is also pledging that they will do so by solar to some extent. We haven't seen the back of the solar yet, but we do definitely know, and we've always known, that we have hydro energy. And we also know that we have some plants. And all of these various plants, some of them are in partial working order, some of them are in proper working order, and some of them are in no working order. For example, the Tico 3 plant that sits in the Abuazi area is not generating any energy because there is a vibration in the system and it cannot be fixed by the manufacturer. So that particular unit is totally out of contention with what we are doing. That's the generation side. The distribution side is encumbered because we have long ago transmission lines that are weak, that cannot carry the current load and cannot actually distribute energy properly because they are too old-fashioned and out of date, and they don't have the capacity to carry what we are trying to do. Then we have the Electricity Corporation of Ghana, whose job it is to actually sell the electricity. ECG buys the energy from VRA and pays Gridco a tariff for carrying that particular distribution, and then they on-sell to us. Unfortunately, we are not doing this at commercial rates for the simple reason that we are still trying to work out the tariff arrangements between what VRA generates, what Gridco supplies, and what the ECG transmits to the bottom. And government's pro-policy mechanism is that they will cushion the unemployed and the less privileged in the society so they can afford to buy electricity at a far lower cost. So the Electricity Corporation of Ghana is saddled with retailing the energy that it buys and is not able to pay for whatever it takes from the VRA and from Gridco because the tariff arrangement controlled by government is insufficient to enable them to generate enough profits to be able to pay back what they have. Now that's the way the whole situation works, my understanding, and what I've gleaned from talking to various players in the sector. Having got to that point, the thing really now is the ECG capable of retailing all of this energy at a profitable rate in order to be able to pay its bills? And the answer is no.
Let me acknowledge Kwame Jantua, who's a lawyer and an energy expert. Kwame, you're welcome.
Good evening, and good evening to Daniel. Good evening to my friend, Keith Layford.
Kwame, I think I'll put the same question to you, that should ECG be sold to make it more efficient?
You know, I don't think the problems of ECG is finance. The problems of ECG, so far as I can see, is a management problem. And I think we really haven't brought everything to the table to actually diagnose what the problem is with all stakeholders. I really aren't for this situation where any time we run into a difficulty with any of our institutions, we turn to privatization. The water privatization has taught us what can happen. So I think really and truly, yes, government has been voted to take care of the country on behalf of the people of Ghana. But government doesn't always have the right answer. So far as I'm concerned, let's have stakeholders to diagnose exactly what the problem is. As far as I'm concerned, the problem is more a management thing than money. Yes, ECG are supposed to collect the rents that they are owed in terms of supplying electricity to consumers. Have they been doing it over the years? And if they haven't been doing it over the years, who is responsible? We need to have a culture of being able to fire people when they don't do the work they are supposed to do. I do not think it's a privatization issue. Mine is that it's a management issue that we need to sort out.
Kwame, hold on. Let me bring Sydney in here. Sydney, Kwame is saying that, look, he thinks it's management. And so why don't we just get good managers? Why do you want to just give it out to somebody? Just get good managers, get the money, and you keep the money.
Well, there's a management problem, but I disagree with Kwame on this one. He and I normally see eye to eye on most issues, but on this one alone, I think that he has to look at the actual financial dynamics of what we are playing with. VRA generates energy and sells it into the marketplace at about 2.6 cents per kilowatt hour. The Electricity Corporation is actually selling this based on government's tariffs and government's forced tariffs at less than 2 cents per kilowatt hour. And you only need to look at the profile of how many people are actually in the underprivileged area who get free energy. And then you start paying your tariffs at a certain rate. I've forgotten the bands at this stage, but from what I remember, the bands are not very, very clear.
0 to 50 kilowatts.
0 to 50 kilowatts, you get it free, and then above that, you start paying a certain rate. So it doesn't matter what management you put in. The fact of the matter is that you cannot make a profit based on what the ECG is producing. When I last looked at the financial statements of the ECG, they're actually losing money at a gross margin basis. In other words, it is costing them more money to actually buy the energy from VRA than it is costing them to actually sell to the public at large. So we do have a problem. Then we have the unprecedented, I don't want to use that word because it's so politicized, but we have the situation where we are actually at a point where we bundle the energy and we pay more for industrial setups and corporations than we actually pay by the private sector. And normally it's the other way around. In any evolved economy, we pay more on the domestic side than we pay on the corporate side. So somehow we've got the thing back to front, and we are trying to make that work because we have a pro-poor policy that says that low-income earners should actually not have to pay for energy, which doesn't make a lot of sense. Because we are trying to run a social democratic system as it is, it doesn't help us. And unfortunately, other economies or other political parties who come in also think that at this particular time, it is such a sensitive thing to do, to allow those who are supposed to be under the umbrella of richness to actually not pay for energy. And so we are losing a whole group of people who are not contributing their quota to ensuring that we can actually make this energy situation work as far as retail is concerned. So on that score, he and I disagree.
Kwame, Sydney raised a very crucial point. I don't know what the new management will do if government will then back off, because what it says that VRA is producing at 2.6, ECG is selling under 2 cents. So from day one, you're running at a loss. Can this be a managed problem, or is this a political problem?
Why is it so? Why is it so? what has been the crux? Yes, I take what Sydney said. But what has been the crux over a certain period of time? The crux has been lack of effective planning. If you are using it, if finance is the question, have we planned our finances well? What is the sense in providing electricity to rural folk who can't pay? What is the sense in that? So we need to be able to plan where alternative energy comes into being. So we say the folk who can't pay, we find alternative energy that would be suitable for them. Where's the planning? Lack of planning, lack of management has created the financial hole where I'm concerned. And we continue not to plan effectively. How is it that we are collecting tariffs, but the cost of producing is more than the tariffs we are collecting? Does it make sense? Does it make sense? And over the years, politicians and parties have fed people, have fed Ghanaians with this free attitude. We've got to a point where that free attitude doesn't work anymore. Let's be honest with ourselves. And let's pay the right tariffs if we want electricity. Because we see today that energy is the key of any country industrializing. Energy is the key of any country moving forward. Look, when petrol prices went up, Ghanaians here shouted and screamed and did everything. Are we not paying those prices? Are we not paying those prices? And it all boils down to government policy. It all boils down to how government looks at employment in this country. It all boils down to how government sets up industry for people to find work to do. And if people don't have money in their pockets, how do we expect them to be able to pay? Yes.
Kwame, you're a politician, and you know that. I mean, like, energy is part of a voting strategy, and there's no way you're going to tell people you're going to pay actual prices, but in the meantime, go and queue up and vote for me. They're not going to do that. Well,
the mindset of Ghanaians has to change, especially where energy is concerned. Is it not the same Ghanaians complaining about Dumso? Is it not the same Ghanaians? And so if I'm a politician and I come and I say pay realistic price and you won't pay for me, you will slip in Dumso. That is the crux. You will slip in Dumso. Are we not all suffering from it? And as we're suffering from it, do we not see that the right tariffs should be paid? If for energy alone, everybody puts their hand to the wheel and pay the right price, would we be going through what we're going through? Yes. Government has a huge burden of planning our energy sector. And for me, in as much as we're looking for a long-term development plan, we need a plan specifically for energy. I keep saying this, where all the stakeholders are on the table talking. I don't see why we should turn to the IFC for the IFC to determine for us what we do with our ECG. I don't see why. We have so-called people in this country who are specialists who can handle our energy situation. Wasn't it the same Ghanaians who went to Liberia to sort out their power crisis? So why can't we do it? Why can't we do it? And I think government has a responsibility. If ECG and the electricity companies are not doing what they are supposed to do, fire them. Open up. I believe that we should open up the ECG monopoly and give private sector the chance to compete with ECG. And let's see, give the people the option to go to whatever equal ECG comes up to compete with them. And then we will see the kind of...
Well, Kwame, let me come in here. Then wouldn't it be the same as getting them to just get a stake of this same ECG rather than go through their whole trouble of setting up their own ECG?
Why? What is wrong with that? What is wrong with inviting companies in to set up their own ECG and compete with ECG? What is wrong with that? We need to sort out the major problems of ECG. I do not think that partially privatizing ECG would solve the problem.
Okay,
because in so doing, capital flight will come in.
Good. Hold on for me there. Now, Sydney, you think, let's bring private money in there or private management. shouldn't we add a bit more value? I mean, now we're going there empty-handed. The bank is on the red, the equipment, are obsolete, and everything about it now is a negative. So, I mean, whoever is coming in is going to give you the lowest price. Should we do something so at least we come and say, look, this is our company, and therefore give me top dollar and I give you a share of it? So that we sell high and sell low.
You're saying that it's at its low ebb, as if it has had a high ebb before, and it has never had. ECG has always been a loss-making organization. And it was a loss-making organization because government used to subsidize all its costs. So ECG has never been profitable. And in so many ways, it's a disingenuous concept by government, because government fixes the tariff. And by fixing the tariff, it makes ECG unprofitable. And then it goes behind it to actually supplement its cost in order to be able to take care of all those costs. At the height of the problem, it was agreed between the VRA, and at that time, the GridCo had not been set up, but between VRA, Ghana Water, and ECG, there was an arrangement that they would net off their cost engagements in order for them not to have to transfer cash around the system. In other words, if ECG bought so much power from government through VRA, so also did Ghana Water buy electricity from ECG. Rather than government having to pay everybody, then what we'll do is that we will set it all off, we'll net it off, and government will just pay one check to the net person who is owed all the money. This was supposed to be honored until such time as government fell on dire straits and wasn't able to provide the cash to be able to sort this problem out. Having got there, what you now see is a complete crisis in the way we are supposed to be able to manage the power supply and generation in the economy. We are at a loss how to fix the problem unless we do what you're suggesting, or what Kwame seems to be suggesting, is that we should at least allow everybody to pay commercial rates so things will work out. And he's right. When we did the fuel price adjustment, Ghanaians complained and everybody said it would be impossible to do and we couldn't do it. But right now we are paying those adjusted rates after about a 45% increase in the value of the pump prices which we had. And we continue to pay it, and we've more or less accepted that this is the price and we are carrying on. So there will be a point where, irrespective of what you do, because people do rely on energy and do rely on power and must have light and must have other electrical supply, they will pay for the right tariffs as you go forward. I dare say that you need to make a choice. You either make it affordably okay so that everybody will feel obligated to pay for it, or you make it so high that people will try and cheat the system in order to be able to get free electricity because they don't want to pay the right tariffs. So the quid pro quo with all of this is exactly where do we stand with policy and direction in order to be able to ensure that everybody can actually get the benefits of what we are trying to achieve by ensuring that the poor persons in the economy, as identified by government, are also going to be able to share in the cake of the largesse of the others who are deemed to be rich enough to be able to afford the poor person's support as we go forward. So how do we do it? How do we fix it? How do we make it work? Well, it is all very, very much subject to the way we think that we should support pro-poor activity in the economy and what we think is the best way to be able to achieve the objective of a social democratic system.
Let me take a break here since we are talking about ECG. I'll take a break here and we're coming straight back. Well, I don't know if I have to apologize, but we're talking about energy, and exactly that's what happened. The lights went out. We had to wait for the generator to come on, and we have lights back. So the show continues, and we are talking specifically that. But I'll divert a little bit, and then I'll come back to ECG. But is anybody calculating the numbers of the actual cost of this doomsday thing? Because it's severe, Sydney.
It's very severe, and I can say to you that this morning at a press conference that we organized for Occupy Ghana, we estimated that the doomsday situation is costing the country about 4 billion cedis.
Wow.
Now, that's our estimate. Ask me how we calculated it. We did some back of the envelope numbers, we estimated a few things, and we came to that conclusion. But this is so severe. The problem permeates way beyond macroeconomic statistics. I mean, you can't do anything in the country depending on electricity anymore. Nothing. You don't even know what cycle we are running. We used to think that we are running a 12 hours on, 24 hours off cycle. Then somebody said to me, it looks like we are doing 24 on, 24 off. I have had 3 hours of electricity in 24 hours these last 2 days. 3 hours. And I cannot do anything continuously without worrying about the power going off. I've tended, even when the power is on, to run my computerized system through an inverter, which I have. But now I don't have enough time in the day for my inverters to charge up sufficiently so that when the power goes off, I can even do any work. So the damage on output is very, very severe and very, very difficult to manage. And it is going to be easier to just ask people to stay home and not come into work on the days when there is no power, because they can save the transport costs. You can save the generator costs in the office. If you're powering up an AC, it's even more difficult. But if you're not, and people are just sweating it out and using fans, it has to be a lot easier for them to just work from home if it's possible. But at the moment, I just think that we have hit rock bottom on this energy crisis. And it is becoming too much of a lie for us to be told that there's a certain specific time in which the problem will be solved. Because clearly looking at it, it is not solvable because it is not a plant and machinery problem. It's a finance problem.
Let me, Kwame, sorry about that. The lights went out, so that's why we seem to have just ignored you. But we are back on. And so I just want to divert a little bit. I mean, you are in energy, and we're just talking about the severity of this doomsday on the economy and production. And I'm sure you want to add a bit to that.
Let me make a point.
Yeah.
So I'll give you a scenario. We bring in a private sector company. Mm-hmm. They take over the management. They look at the whole setup of ECG, and they recommend to the Ghana government that you need to raise tariffs. Would people be up in arms if that happens? And if we raise tariffs, if they recommend that tariffs are raised, will Ghanaians not pay? What's the difference now? If ECG do the forensics and come out with the conclusion that we need to raise tariffs. What's the difference between the two? What's the difference between the two? I do not think, yes, there are certain institutions where we can say, yes, we need private sector injection. But with an institution like ECG, which is a property of Ghanaians, my fear is that you bring an international company and you begin to see capital flight out of this country. The money that we are trying to reserve, you see it go out. Does that really make sense? And I would appeal to government that all the brains in this world do not lie in their heads. I appeal to government that they should open up the discussion for others to come in so that Ghanaians find a lasting solution to this problem. Look at the badge problem and look at the embarrassment of hearing the manufacturers say what they said today. In that case, who is lying to Ghanaians? The president promises us and says that from this point on, dumso, we will solve it within a certain duration of time. And we sit and the manufacturers of the badges come and tell Ghanaians that we are not a short-term badge manufacturer. Our contract is for a 10-year span because we are doing A, B, C, D, E, and we are not short-term. You see, it brings a certain lack of credibility to government when these things happen, especially when promises are made and promises are continuously broken. It does not bode well, not only for Ghanaians, but even for the international a world who are looking at how we are handling this problem. Yes, government should accept that we have failed. And if we have failed, let's see how best we can sort this out. All the stakeholders bring around the table. Let's all sit and talk about this thing and see the best way forward. Because it affects everybody. It even affects the lizards and the ants in our house. It affects everybody and affects everything. So it isn't something that we should joke with. And I do agree with Sydney that yes, there's a management, there's a financial situation here that we need to sort out. But there are other added problems. The inefficiencies in ECG should be looked at. Those who are responsible to handle ECG, if they are not handling ECG, sack them and bring those who can handle it and make sure that they handle it well. Because if we don't do that, and we look at political patronage in the institutions that we have, we are not going anywhere. When Obama came and said, build strong institutions, we need to build strong institutions. We need a police service where if the president does something, the police can go in and arrest him. You think if Obama were to step out of line, the American police won't catch him? If, Cameron were to step out of line, he will not be arrested by Scotland Yard? If our president steps out of line, will our police be able to arrest him? So you see, it is fundamental for us to make sure that the institutions we have are working independently and are doing what they are supposed to do to benefit Ghanaians. Because unfortunately, ECG, VRA, Gridco, with this dumso, they are all guilty. They are not benefiting Ghanaians. And I'll ask one thing. We built a West African gas pipeline. Did we not think that we should think about a reverse flow when we are an oil-producing country, when we knew we were building a gas infrastructure? Would not that have been the first thing we would do? And then we built the gas infrastructure after so many delays, and now the gas is stuck. We can't even run it through the gas pipeline for us to be able to say the power plant in Tema, you to hear is gas. I do not see how we are planning. I do not see it. And if we continue to do it the way we are doing, then we are in deep trouble. Sorry to say.
Kwame, I'll come back to you with VRA, Gridco, ECG failing because they're saying we owe them 1.5 billion. If you give it to them, they will work. So hold on. But I'm coming to Sydney to ask Sydney. Kwame raised a point that as soon as we privatize, they would vet the company and come with some proposals, and by all means, it will be raised tariffs, and anybody who doesn't pay, I'm going to cut him off. And government will say, well, that's how you're going to run it. So why doesn't government do that now? Why should we wait for it to be privatized and before we do the good thing?
Because government is playing a political game. For government, it's a game of survival and re-election. So rather than make the hard decisions, which in this case will be, let's privatize it so private enterprise can decide what to do. This thing is supposed to work because you have a public utilities regulator, and the regulator sets the tariffs. So it's not one of those things where private sector can just pop in and decide that, oh, we are raising the price up to 100 cedis per kilowatt hour. They cannot do that. Mm-hmm. They have to actually go to the regulator and make their case with the regulator for an increase in tariffs.
But that would be very easy, though.
No, it will not be.
It will be easy.
No, it will not be easy. It will not be easy because justifying your cost inputs and justifying your overhead in order to be able to generate things are very, very well-known numbers.
It will be easy. Number one, obsolete machines. Number two, overstaffed. Number three, the price per fuel and what are we generating. I mean, even if they were saying they're going to work at zero, no profit, just break even, I'm sure we owe them about 60% rise.
Yeah, but before you start getting into that, you will negotiate or you will be made aware of what the situation is. And if you're not made aware, it's a caveat emptor situation. Let the buyer beware, where the buyer is supposed to ask all the questions that it needs in order to be able to make a good commercial decision. So whichever way you do it, the buyer has to go back and ask the relevant questions before it decides to go ahead and and accept a contract that will enable it to distribute power. So you cannot just get in there and just say, you told me it was 2.6 cents, now I find that it is 4 cents. So I want 8 cents. You can't do it that way. There's a procedure that you have to follow, and there's a contract that is to be determined. So all of those things are critical in the way we need to get things done. So privatization is not always the ogre which we try to make it out as. In many ways, privatization has helped, especially where competition is in the marketplace. If you look at the telecom industry, where we have 6 mobile network operators, each one of them is competing at a certain tariff, and the tariff has now been set at a certain point where everybody's concerned that if they go below that tariff, they will lose money. So they are keeping the tariff at a particular point. However, they are not eager to raise the tariffs over and above what is supposed to be acceptable, because if they did, then others will maintain their price at the lower rates and they will get all the business. So competition to a large extent is very critical. So the sale and distribution of ECG in such a way that private sector will participate has to depend on having a multiplicity of companies who are participating in the program in order to ensure that there is market force determinants in the way we price the products.
Let me go to Kwame. Kwame, VRA, ECG, they are saying, look, the state owes us 1.5 billion. Mr. Kofi, chief executive of VRA, saying, look, if you give me that money, I will give you power. He needs money for fuel. He needs money to change his transformers and stuff. And obviously, government is not paying. So, I mean, how have they failed?
You know, Nana.
Yeah.
I'm finding it very, very difficult to understand why over a long duration of time we have left certain maintenance schedules to go down the drain. And I think it has been a bane of electricity companies. There has not been a time where the regulator hasn't honored an increase in tariffs. Yes, it might not be to the maximum that the electricity companies wanted, but they have raised tariffs. They've either left tariffs as they are, but then after a certain duration, raised it to what the companies have requested for. But even though they have raised it, have they been able to give us quality service, even with the rise of the tariffs? Have they been able to do that? I believe that we need leadership in this country that says, I do not care if I don't win the next election, but I'm going to do the right thing. I'm going to bite the bullet and do the right thing by Ghanaians because that was why I was voted into power. We should not suffer because of politics. We should not, especially where energy is concerned. Maybe other things, but where energy is concerned. Because you see, the other day, I was driving on a dark road between Achimota police station right up to Hacho. Dark road. You know what happened to me?
No.
A stone was thrown through my windscreen at 11 o'clock at night. You know the implications if I had stopped? I would have been robbed. I could have even been hurt just because there's no light on the road. And criminals take advantage of that. These are things that probably those in power will not experience it because they drive around in convoy and with police escorts. The ordinary Ghanaian doesn't do that. So we need a leader who comes and says, whatever the case is, I would fix this whichever way. If I'm going to lose the next election or fixing it, let me lose the next election. That is what we're looking for. And to play politics with energy, I'm telling you, is a dangerous thing to do. Because we are all suffering from it. Everybody. Maybe the politicians aren't because they have generators. But those people they go to seek their votes from are suffering from it. And I don't see how any political party in power should use this situation to play politics. It's sad if that is the case. ECG have had tariff increases for quite some time. ECG are now going round. I was reading in the paper, was it today or yesterday, that they've gone into Swedro and they are switching people's electricity off for not paying. Where were they when they knew that they owed? Where were they? Where was ECG? What was that lackadaisical attitude that they took by not collecting what was owed them? Why? And this is what I don't understand. Because I have been paying my electricity bill. And in that electricity bill, there is a component for street lights. Has anybody come to tell us what they use that money for? Because our streets are still dark. So why do I continue to pay that component in the electricity bill? Do they not owe responsibility to Ghanaians? And I think Ghanaians should sit up the way we sat up and took the sale of Ghana Telecom to court. Ghanaians should be able to take ECG to court for non-performance.
Let me bring Sydney in here, because that was actually going to say, I mean, can't we make an example out of this one? Say, look, this is, as for this company, it was owned by Ghana and we turned it around. I mean, is it not possible? I mean, there's 27 million of us. Fine, some of them are babies, but a lot of us are old and educated and in charge and in power. Is there absolutely no way somebody can say that, listen, we are turning things around? Maybe the CEO, look, you have 6 months, increase your revenue, because they have a 30% loss. I mean, who runs businesses at 30% loss? I mean, that's candle in the wind. I mean, can't we make an example out of this?
Well, we could have, but unfortunately we can't anymore because we have signed a Millennium Compact.
It's 500 million at stake, yeah?
And we have agreed that we will implement what it is according to the compact.
But we can make more than 500 million from ECG.
I don't think so. I don't think so. You
have a monopoly?
Well, you say 27 million people, but you need to divide that number by 5.
Well, I mean, they have about 650,000 customers.
Yes.
I mean, 650,000 customers using your product. I mean, if you are going to be efficient in collecting your money, you should make this money. Well, maybe in a year,
you can have 650,000 customers, and if they are buying your product at 1 CD and you are selling it at 90 pesos, you are not going to survive. It doesn't matter how many people there are. You could be 650, you could be 650 million. It won't work.
So
the larger it is, the more losses you're making. So whichever way you play it, it's the tariff arrangement that is killing it.
So that's
and the tariff arrangement is killing it because government is insisting that it will peg the price at certain level in order for it to gain political advantage. The same thing we are doing with fuel prices, except it's across the board. Government manipulates and controls the prices. In an economy that is supposed to be a liberal market economy, government still persists in controlling the prices as it goes forward because it is better for them, in their opinion, to actually give the people of this country largesse rather than actually do it at an economic tariff rate. And that's the problem you have.
Sydney, so we flip the coin round. Industry pays less. Those who are, chilling their beer and just watching TV pay more, and you pay the actual price. If I'm producing at 2.6, you buy it at 3.6. Turn off your lights if it's too expensive. In 3 years, you turn it around.
Yeah, but government doesn't have the guts to do that. I mean, if I was speaking more liberally off camera, I would use a different language. But government just doesn't have the guts to do it because they think the future of them being returned to government is if they continue to give the people freebies. So they continue to give freebies in order to be rewarded and for them to stay in power. And that's the political analysis. That's the political thinking of both our political parties. If we could have done it, the MPP government could have done it when they came into power in 2001. They didn't do it. The NDC has been in power for the longest of both parties. They've been around for longer than anybody else in government, and they have not done it and probably will not do it. Because under the guise of social democracy, they think they should be giving the people free things in order for them to be able to make a mark in this society. So we have a conundrum, and that conundrum is simple the way you're putting it. Can we not do it? Should we not do it? Why is it impossible? Why is it difficult? And I think you're trying to make a big situation out of what is a simple answer. And the simple answer is it is not politically expedient for government to be able to make this work. And so they won't do it.
I'm going to take a break, and when I come back, Kwame Jantua is a stout CPP member. I would ask him that, look, if it were a CPP government, would they be caught in the same cycle, or could they have broken the norm? So this tune, I'm coming. Well, thank you very much for staying. We are looking at the efficiency of ECG. Should we keep it local and try and just, for once, apply common sense and make it work, or we should choose the easier option of saying, look, you know what, get some people in, it's their problem, let them fix it. Vodafone took over Ghana Telecom. Suddenly, they laid off more than half the workers and they're making twice the money. Should the same thing happen to ECG, or can we do it on our own? But before the break, I wanted to find out from Kwame Jantua, if the CPP was in charge, could you bite the bullet, or it's easier said than done?
Well, first of all, the CPP doesn't see electricity as being a privilege. It's the right of the people. And I believe that we would have planned for the future. The way Nkrumah himself didn't realize that Akosombo Dam wouldn't last more than 30 years, and he was planning in the future. One of the challenges that we've had is that we haven't planned effectively in the future. Hence, it comes by us now. We would have planned in the future, for the future, to make sure that at least as the population is increasing and demand for energy is increasing, we are able to supply electricity to consumers. Look, by the year 2030, Ghana's population would have reached nearly 65 million. Who is planning for it now as we sit? Who is planning in terms of housing? Who is planning in terms of even roads? Who is planning in terms of supply of water? Who is planning in terms of energy? So for us, the basis is planning. And encapsulating that planning in a long-term development plan where you can target your revenues properly. Because in this present moment, we are targeting our revenues by discretion. And we are targeting our revenues via a party's political manifesto. So if it so happens that things change and a different party comes in after 4 years, that plan is thrown aside and a new one is brought in. How then does that plan manifest itself for the future? How? So a question of planning is key in whatever the CPP would do. And I don't see why the parties of today don't see it. Look, I am a commissioner on the NDPC, and looking at the medium development plans that have been put down, it is being underlined and underpinned by the manifesto of the main party. So if the CPP comes into power come 2016, would we take it? Would we decide to move what that plan was put in for? We won't. Definitely, because we'll see it as an NDC manifesto plan. And that is the bane. That is something we should drive away from, because we want continuity in everything we do, including our energy sector.
Let me, Sydney, I think we are bolting the door when we're shutting the door, barn door.
After the stable out of the horse is bolted.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So Obama's go. Would it go to locals? Will it go to foreigners? Who's going to have the big share of this pie after it's been sliced up?
It would be nice if it went to locals. It would be nice if local companies would prove the capacity to be able to deliver what is expected. And actually, it would be good if government had a pro-local policy and ensure that only local companies would be given the opportunity to do this. However, you took the money from the USA, and they would like some of their companies to benefit from some of that money. So it would be unlikely that we will shut the door in the face of everybody else and give it only to local Ghanaian companies. So that is a bit of wishful thinking, which can happen. But it is time.
Can we do what Kwame said? Okay, ECG goes to Ghanaians. Let these guys, come and set up your, rival company and let's compete.
Well, Ghana is an open market. Anybody can set up a company and compete in whatever arena it wants to. And anybody can actually apply, if it wants to take a piece of the ECG cake. So it's open. We hardly ever discriminate between local companies, except when it comes to retail goods in the Makola market. That's when we say Chinese people can't sell there, and only Ghanaians can sell there. And also, of course, with hairdressing salons and barbers. But Ghana has built its reputation on an open market policy. And I think that anybody who can come up with the right proposal and the right opportunity for government should be the best under consideration. However, we have seen instances where the supposed best solution has not gotten the prize at the end of the day. So what should we do?
Should we slice it up? Dansoman has their own energy, Sunyani has their own energy, Bantama has their own energy, in small pockets, so that you can manage. You know that, look, I only have, maybe 1,000 customers, and therefore I need to go and take my money, rather than the big maze where you don't know where anybody else.
No, you probably need at most 10 companies, one in each region.
Even if it's the same company, but the Dansoman ECG is only responsible for Dansoman, and then the Achimota one just looks after Achimota. So you have 1,000 customers to look after, and then just go and get your money.
I think that will be too small. As a proposal which you're suggesting, I would say it's too small. You need critical mass to be able to generate all of this, because if, for example, you need 10 people or 10 staff to be able to provide Dansoman, and that 10 staff is going to cost you 200,000 cedis. But if you take Dansoman plus more area, you're still going to need 10 staff, and it will cost you the same 200,000 cedis, but you can bring in, you make more money if you do it that way. So this discussion could carry on, but for me, the solution in terms of numbers would be quite different. I think that regionalizing it would be the best way. And even in Accra, Kumasi, secondary Takrady, maybe Koforidua, you need to have more than one.
Well, thank you very much. I know they're kicking me off the television screen, but on Thursdays, those of you who follow That's My Opinion on Joy FM, tomorrow we are talking about planlessness. I want to say thank you very much to Kwame Jantwa, who joined us on phone all throughout. Kwame, thank you very much. Thank you very much, Sydney. But tune in tomorrow between 2 p.m. and 3 p.m. and listen to my piece entitled Planlessness. Indeed, I think we've talked about quite a few of it here, but we'll be joining in tomorrow. I want to say thank you to the producers, Famous, Nee, and JJ. I want to say thank you to McBride and Azalu, who directed the program. You know what? Tomorrow we'll be back to do this all over again. Thank you for watching.